Now let's talk about effort. I mean, this is the NBA Finals, and we're talking about effort. That's a huge concern of mine. And you guys probably thought I was just making up some storyline after game one when I said we didn't play well. We didn't play well. And tonight, that the starting lineup to start the game is 10-2 Miami. Start the third quarter, they scored 11 points in 2 minutes and 10 seconds. And we just got, we had guys out there that were just, whether feeling sorry for themselves for not making shots or thinking they can just turn it on or off. This is not the preseason. This is not the regular season. It's not round. This is the NBA Finals. And that to me is really, really perplexing, disappointing. And I asked the team, I asked our players, you guys tell me why we lost. And they knew the answer. Miami came in here and outworked us. And we were by far our least disciplined game of these 16 or 17 playoff games, whatever it is now. So many breakdowns. And they exploited every one of those breakdowns and scored. So if we're going to try to go down there and regain control of this series and get home court advantage back, we're going to have to outwork Miami, which we didn't do tonight, and our discipline's going to have to be off the charts.
Hello, everybody. This is Josh Price, and you are listening to the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Each episode, my dad will be talking NBA basketball, sharing some coaching and instruction, and of course, talking about his faith. Without further delay, here's my dad, Mark Price.
Welcome to episode 33 of the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Hope you all enjoyed a Memorial Day episode last week. And Mark, how are you?
I'm great, Aaron. Had a week of vacation at the beach, refreshed. My face is a little red today. Got a little bit too sun. I'm not a tanner. I'm a redder. When I get out in the sun. But great time. Had 3 of my 4 adult kids there on the trip with us this time, and their spouses or girlfriends, and so it was fun. It was just a lot of fun to hang out, relax, rejuvenate, and the weather was awesome. So that's always great.
I think you were charging your batteries for a very busy summer for you coming up.
Yeah, June and July are gonna get real busy. Basketball camp season is here. It is approaching quickly, starting in 2 weeks. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but North Olmsted's the first stop on the tour. Mm-hmm. And then we head to Hilliard, your neck of the woods, in about 3 weeks. So I'm really excited about coming to Hilliard and checking the city out and spending time with you guys.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it as well. It's a great city, so I plan on dragging you all over town on your time off. But all right, let's jump in. Since we last talked, the Miami Heat shocked the world once again, beat the Boston Celtics in 7 games, which Game 7 turned out to be surprising. I don't think if anybody thought there was going to be a blowout, it was probably going to be the Celtics. But let's just start with that one.
Well, I think it was hard for anybody going into that game to believe that the Heat could win because they had lost. I mean, twice they had a chance to close it out on their home court, and they were unable to do so. And so going back to Boston for Game 7, I think everybody was kind of like, well, good job, Miami. You had a great run. But they weren't having it, and they came out and dominated that game. It was crazy. It looked like they were the team that had the momentum. It was, the game of basketball, that's just what makes it so great, is the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, the human aspect of it, the mental aspect that, how players can't get up for some games and get up for other games. And it's just, it's fun to watch, to see all those kind of things going on all at once. But kudos to the Miami Heat. They got to the finals. Yep. And last night they tied it up. First game against the Nuggets. The Nuggets looked like, hey, this was going to be a sweep. I mean, they just dominated that game. And I think most people were like, well, Denver's just the better team. And I think most people would still say that. They probably have more talent and they probably are the better team, but there's something about this Heat team. It's just crazy. I mean, it's a different guy every night, it seems like. And I mean, and you got to give Coach Spo a lot of credit. I mean, he plays game, certain guys. I mean, the Martin kid, he's the one that was a big reason they beat Boston. Yep. And yet he hadn't even played it that much in this series yet. And yet when he gets called upon, he comes in and does his job. The sharpshooter for the Heat as well came in last night, and just he hadn't been playing that much lately either. And all of a sudden, Spo's looking for something, and he puts him in, and he scores 10 points in the fourth quarter and helps the Heat even the series up. So, yeah, it's a series now for sure,
That's right.
going back to Miami.
Well, I think books will be written about this Miami Heat team. If nothing else, coaches are going to at least roll a lot of tape out and show players. You mentioned Martin. I think he did not start the game, correct? Kevin Love did.
They did. I think the size of Denver really bothered the Heat in the first game. And like I said, kudos to Eric Spoelstra. He's not. Thing I like about him is a lot of coaches tend to be a little stubborn with, hey, these are my starters, and these, he's just like with his team. He's like, we're going to start the best group that gives us a chance to win. Right. And so, and the players have bought in, and they all. I mean, Kevin Love played very little in that Celtics series due to matchup situations. And now all of a sudden it looks like he may be a key figure as the series moves along, just to give them a little bit more size to not get dominated on the glass.
And the way that the players accepted those roles, that's a key too. I think, just as much as coaches are stubborn, so are players sometimes. No offense, but players are worried about contracts and a lot of other things. And this team is just, there's something about an unselfish, there's a fight. Like I said, I think there'll be books written about this team and their culture. Spoelstra is really doing some amazing things there.
Well, he is. And I think to a league that's kind of gone to this, we have 3 one-on-one players and we take turns letting them play. Right. As you kind of watch the Celtics play that way with their guys. I mean, the Miami Heat don't have that guy. I mean, Jimmy Butler, maybe. I mean, for a while he was playing that well, but not right now. They don't have that guy that, hey, just throw the ball, clear it out, go one-on-one, get a bucket. They have run schemes, they run plays, they get guys the ball, they move the ball. They play a team game. That's the only way that they can be successful is executing that. And I think for the purest basketball guys out there, it's a breath of fresh air to watch them play, because they don't have the quote unquote necessary superstar players. I think people probably consider Butler a superstar now, but going into the playoffs this year, I think most people would have looked at Jimmy Butler as a really, really good second tier, player. And he's obviously, shown that he's a first tier guy, but he's not a Kevin Durant. He's not a Jason Tatum. He's not one of those guys that can just all night long play one-on-one basketball and get you a bucket. So it's been fun watching the Heat. And obviously I'm a big Nuggets fan. I helped coach there for a year, and I know all those guys. And so, they're fun to watch as well. They just last night for some reason, and that's why I said the game of basketball is so interesting, and how the mind and the mental aspect, the approaches to the games. I mean, Malone came out after the game and kind of blasted them and saying they weren't, ready, that they, we talked about those cliches, and they didn't play hard enough. And, I watched Nikola Jokic get interviewed, and he was asked those same kind of questions, and you could tell he was kind of looking at, here's a dude that dropped 41. I think he was playing pretty hard, but I think it was just sometimes a mental approach gets in there. Hey, we've won every home game in the playoffs. We just squashed this team in game one. Just the human aspect of it. I think it's hard to convince guys that, hey, we got to play better than we did the last game when we just won by 20. Yeah. And so they looked a little bit flat, maybe is the word. Who knows? Coming out of the gates, but you could tell from the get-go Miami was playing for their lives. Right. They came out, hit a few shots early, got some confidence going, and made it a game. But then the Nuggets dominated the second quarter. And once again, it looked like they were just going to run away with it. But the Heat just kept grinding and grinding and grinding. And by the fourth quarter, you look up and they're up 10 at one point in the fourth quarter. It's amazing. Really fun game. I'm glad, because I think it's good for the league. It's good for basketball that this series goes as far as it can go, because you have two good basketball teams that play the game of basketball the right way. And I love that that's being put on display in the finals this year.
Agree 100%. And I might have turned the game off and tweeted that this thing's over in the second quarter. which I had to walk that back a little bit because, wow, I should have learned at this point never to count Miami out. I mean, it looked like it was just going to be another runaway, to your point. It'll be interesting to see what the viewership was and if I wasn't the only one that did that, because it looked like it was going to get ugly, and somehow Miami found a way to come back. So very interesting series. Today we're talking about the prize. Obviously, we're talking about the championship and them being in the championship. What are your thoughts on no timeout there at the end? Because I know a lot of people are going to talk about that today. But not the Nuggets not calling a timeout. They went for it.
Well, I think the way that they play, I mean, I don't think they were going to draw up anything different. It was going to be Murray or Jokic that was going to take that last shot. And they play the way that they play. And I guess Malone's mindset was just, well, let's just do it in the flow of the game rather than let's, get in everybody's head and let everybody prepare. And so, I think a lot of coaches go back and forth on that situation. Do you let the guys in the flow of the game play, or do you call a timeout and let the other team set up their defense? I mean, and so, with the way the Nuggets play, they were going to go through Nikola and Murray, regardless of whether they called the timeout or not. So, yeah, I mean, that wasn't that big a deal to me. I'm sure, for the talking heads, it'll give them something to talk about or blame somebody for the next couple of days. But, that was just a coaching decision that he felt. And, rightly so. You got the best player in the league that you're playing through. And Jamal Murray's been really, really good the whole playoffs. So he put the ball in the best player's hands. And, unfortunately for Denver, it didn't work out.
And Murray got a good look. I mean, if I remember correctly, he got a pretty good look at a three.
Yeah, it was a step back three. I mean, but for him, it is a good look. I mean, he makes those shots. Right. So, they got a shot from a guy that they wanted to take a shot. So,
yep. So we're going to talk about the prize today, and we're going into the coaching. This is the most obvious question in the world, but how hard is it to win a championship?
Well, it's super hard. I can speak from from the aspect of that I played on a team that I felt was talented enough to win one, and yet we just were never able to get over that hump. A lot of people point at Michael Jordan and playing against the greatest player in one of the greatest eras of the game of basketball. Regardless of that, there's a lot of really, really great players over the years, and you hear them talk about it on TNT all the time. Guys like Barkley and guys, you just go down the list that have played in the league and never got a championship. And so it's very, very difficult. I mean, you have to be good, but you also, things have to fall your way a little bit. There's a lot of things that play into it. Injuries, are a big part of it. Who's the healthiest team? Right. Who's grooving? What team's playing the best basketball at the right time? I mean, there's just so many different factors involved. And it's a game of attrition in some facts, because it's not like college where you play a team once, at that March Madness, you can get hot for 3 or 4 games and win a whole thing. I mean, you got to be able to beat a team, 4 out of 7 games. Right. And that's a war. That's, it's a battle. It's a war. It's a mental, it's physical. There's all things that go into it. It's amazing, and so winning a championship is really special. Even if you get just one, but teams that are able to get multiple ones, I mean, you got to give their hats off to them. They've figured out a way to get it done.
I think people outside, like myself, a casual fan, looks at it and says, come on, you're in the NBA Finals. How could you not have been focused? Like, we'll take Malone's comments last night, for example. I think the average person listening thinks, oh, you got to be kidding me. You're in the NBA Finals. It's the fourth quarter. You could be up 2-0. How could you not be focused? I think that goes back to your point. It's not easy. It's hard to sustain this high level, I would assume, high level intensity for an entire series. How does that happen? And I guess if we knew that, we probably wouldn't have to ask the question. But
yeah, I think if you could put that in a bottle and sell it, you'd be a rich man. Everybody would be buying it. I think, and we're mostly talking about on the court stuff right now.
Right.
But when you're talking about the NBA Finals, I mean, off the court stuff, to me, is where a lot of the distractions can come into play. I mean, you have media. I mean, you're not just getting interviewed by your normal, 5 or 6 guys after a regular season game. I mean, you got hundreds not just from the United States, but from across the world, media coverage of this, following every story they can find. I mean, looking for something. I mean, and so the discipline and it even goes back to guys, whether it be their families or, girlfriends or this and that. I heard Shaq mention to that, last night. He said, when it comes to a situation like this, you almost have to tell everybody, hey, I'll see you after the finals kind of deal. I mean, because your focus 24/7 needs to be, what can I do to get myself ready to play to the best of my ability? And, I think people don't think about it, because when you get to the playoffs, I remember many times when we get to the playoffs, right? Well, my family wanted to come watch, Laura's family would want to come. So, I mean, you might have 25 people wanting to stay at your house or whatever, and go to the games, and you have to tell your family, no, you can't stay here. I mean, you have to, we love you. I'll be glad to go have some dinner after the game. But other than that, I can't see you or spend time with you. And you have to lay down those expectations. And some people do it, and other guys struggle with that, and it can get to you and affect your play on the court. So, there's so many different things. I mean, you can talk about on the court stuff all the time, but being able to really set aside every distraction, and that flows into some of the faith stuff that we're going to talk about later, where it talks about in Scripture, put aside every distraction, right? That keeps us from our faith. Well, it's the same principle, when you want to be successful and this is a big time, serious, you don't get many chances to try to play for a championship. And so you've got to be willing to put things to the side, and you got to hopefully have, your family understanding and people, and not give you a hard time about, because understand what it is you're trying to accomplish out there.
And that leads into the next question for me is you've mentioned this on other podcasts, like there's a winner and there's a loser. And you said, the winning's great, and I'm taking it out of context a bit, but you said the winning's great, but like the losses, you took those hard. You took the losses really hard. So now you've got family that's in from out of town, to your point, and hey, let's all go grab some dinner. And I don't know about you, but I know, I think any competitor, when you lose, you're not ready to just hop in the car, take the whole family out, extended family out, friends out for a big dinner, especially in the NBA Finals. Is that fair?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, I hated losing. Yeah, right. We talked about this in other episodes. You got people that like to win. Everybody likes to win, but I'm one of those guys. I hate losing more than I like to win. and so, yeah, I mean, it's when you win, there's nothing like it. And when you lose, there's nothing worse, man. It's just hard, and you've laid it out there and it didn't work. And then you came up short, and now you got everybody waiting for you after the game. Yeah. Hey, where are we going? Right. What are we going to do? And so, yeah, I think the average fan doesn't quite understand all that's involved, on the perimeter of these players. And I mean, you got so many people pulling at them. I mean, people, every news station wants an interview, everybody wants a ticket, every family member wants to come. It's just, you're getting pulled in all kinds of different directions. And I think the guys that can kind of figure out how to deal with all that, because it's on a scale. I mean, you get a little bit of that as an NBA player, just on a regular basis, you get a little bit of that, but it's like magnified by 100 times, man, when you get to the playoffs. And then by the time you get to the finals, I mean, the whole world is just watching two teams. And so all the scrutiny, all the good things they praise you for, all the bad things they kill you for. It's nonstop 24/7. And it's not easy. And to navigate that, to, work through that and be focused when you set on that floor, to be 100% locked in.
This is going to be another broad brush, maybe obvious question. Is the championship trophy enough to drive guys And this may not be the same for every player. There's probably some guys that maybe it's not. Maybe just being in the NBA. I don't know. So I'll ask you. You've been around the league long enough, around players. Is the championship trophy, the prize, is it enough to drive guys?
Yeah, it is. And to say you're a world champion, to have that's something that you'll always have. And so, yeah, it's big. There are a lot of guys that could care less. They're about, hey, I'm in the NBA, I'm making good money, I'm going to be set for life financially, and if I win a ship, great. If I don't, there's a lot of guys out there that are like that. But I think the top level guys, I mean the top level players for sure, that's something that if they don't have that at the end of their careers, we all feel short that we didn't quite get what we wanted out of it. And even though I was, thought for what I was able to accomplish in my career, I'm very, happy with the way my career as overall that I was able to accomplish a lot of things, a lot more things than people thought I would be able to. Mm-hmm. But as a competitor and as a player, I wanted to win a championship for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That was important to me, and I was disappointed I wasn't able to be a part of that.
One last point on that. I think it even puts more importance on what LeBron James was able to do for the city of Cleveland. Because you just talked about, think about that guy has all the pressure anyway, whether he was the best and all that. And then he comes back to town, which amped it up even more. I mean, everything, all the sliders were on 10 and all the volume was cranked on that entire season. Not just LeBron, but, Kevin Love, Kyrie, everybody on that team. But that's a tremendous amount of mental toughness, I think, to deliver what LeBron did for Cleveland.
Oh, it's incredible. It really is. I mean, whether you're a LeBron fan or you're not a LeBron fan, or
right.
And there's a lot of people on both sides of that out there. It always is. I mean, you hit it exactly right. I mean, he came back for one particular reason, and that was to bring a championship to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. So it was all in or bust. I mean, if that hadn't happened, everybody would have just said that, he couldn't make it happen. But he, and like you said, I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, it wasn't just LeBron, but I mean, to have a talent like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love in his prime, that's a pretty good core group of players right there.
That's a pretty good place
But that being said, I mean, you still have to get it done. You still have to get it done. And they were able to do it and come back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals to do it. And so, I mean, the backs were against the wall and they did it, and it was amazing. And I was so happy, in some small way, I felt like I was a part of that process.
Sure.
And was, I was as happy as all the other Cleveland fans to watch that happen. And was so happy for the city of Cleveland because I so wanted to be able to do that as a player there myself and was not able to.
So let's transition to the faith segment, and we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 9:24 today. And it says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way that you get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get to a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever." As we were thinking about the prize, I thought about that. What are your thoughts on 1 Corinthians?
Oh, I love that. That's one of my favorite passages of Scripture. Obviously, Paul was referencing and using sports as an example of the training that's involved, the self-discipline that's involved of being a champion athlete and competing and sacrificing and the self-discipline that goes into that. And he's transferring that into our faith walk, that we need to have that same approach, that same mental self-discipline to make sure we're doing the things we need to do to walk through our faith and our faith journey to win the prize, which ultimately is to stand before our Father in heaven one day and to hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And so So yeah, I love that verse. I love the connection between using sports as an example, because we all love sports and we can relate to that and understand it. I think we all need to be challenged to have that same mentality with our faith walk. I think we don't, in general terms, are not as disciplined in the things we need to do, whether it be spending time in God's word, time in prayer, mentoring, encouraging other believers, being mentored ourselves, making sure we're being involved in a local church, all the things that we've talked about in the past that help, sustain us and help us in our walk with Christ. Those are the things that help us continue to walk toward winning that prize.
Right. I think the interesting thing is that everything that we've talked about in this episode, as it relates to sports, I think also relates to the faith. So the discipline, as you said, distractions that we have, mental setbacks, losses, physical setbacks, all those things are things that can distract us from the prize. And I think when I ask you, is the championship enough? I think sometimes we have to, really ask ourselves, is heaven enough? Is God enough? Like you said, is standing before him one day enough to push me through to the prize? You know what I mean? To keep me disciplined.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
It is fair, because I think that's the challenge for us as believers, because we know, right, that he's already won.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
We know in the end, we know we win.
Yeah.
We're going to stand before Jesus. Those of us that have put our faith and trust in him, we're going to stand before him and spend the rest of eternity with God the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. And so we're going to win. But we don't know when that's going to be. And so it's out there. So it's like, you want to use that. I think sometimes we can't lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of believers sometimes get discouraged or whatever, and they're looking at their present circumstances. And, Paul even mentions that in his letters many times. He goes, my present circumstances do not compare. Whatever it might be that I'm going through does not compare to the joy that I'm going to have when I'm standing and spending eternity with God in heaven.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be on our minds, in our perspective all the time, because we are. I mean, it's life. We're living in a crazy time in our life right now. There's a lot of things going on out there that can pull us and can get us down, or could get us discouraged at the way things are going in our country, or whatever it might be that's happening out there. But to always remember that God's got this. He has a plan. I can trust in that plan. So I just need to do my part and be disciplined to stay in the word, to pray, to do the things, as we said, to train ourselves, as Paul's talking about in these verses, train ourselves so that we will be ready to accept that prize when we meet Jesus in heaven.
And the good thing is we're still in the series. We're still in the game.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the game's not over, and we don't know when the series is going to end, but we're still in it. So if you haven't done and don't know what Mark and I are talking about, I think I'd encourage you. Reach out to myself, Aaron at aaronconrad.com. Reach out to us through the website, myunscripted.com/Mark Price. There's a contact form there. If you don't know what we're talking about, reach out to us. Happy to assist and talk you through, some of that process. But Mark, I know you've got to run here in a minute. So let's really quick. You've got your camps coming up. You mentioned them earlier. North Olmsted is first up and Hilliard is next. Those have some spots available currently still, right?
They do. Okay. We have spots available. So, grab them quick. If you're listening, somebody, some friends that have kids or whatever. It really is. It's a great camp. We have a great time. They learn a lot about the game of basketball, and we'd love to have them. North Olmsted and Hilliard are both new camps this year. So we're excited about that, extending our reach from last year. And so it's always fun going in for the first time, doing a camp. And so really excited about the North Olmsted camp here in 2 weeks. And then the following week we'll be in Hilliard. So really excited about that. And like I said earlier, Aaron, spending time with you guys in Hilliard and being a part of that. And and seeing what's going on in your city there. So it's so much fun for me to get to go. And that's a big part of it for me as well. It's community. It's not just a basketball camp. We set these camps up in communities, and the communities are very involved in helping put them together, because I want that relationship. I want to give back to the communities and give them something to get excited about. And we had great success with it in Avon Lake and Medina last year, and the people are excited about having us come back. So it's so much fun. Looking forward to getting going in North Olmsted in 2 weeks. But yeah, we still got spots available, so let's fill those up.
MarkPriceCamps.com, correct? MarkPriceCamps.com.
MarkPriceCamps.com. You go straight to their website and you can sign up right there.
Let's get it done. Hilliard, I'm talking to you. We can't wait to have you in North Olmsted, all over. It's going to be good to have you here in our city, and I know our city is very excited. So before they cut your cable, so Mark's dealing with it on a Monday morning, but thanks again for another episode, Mark. Welcome back, and I look forward to next week.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll see what happens with the finals this week as they head to Miami, and should have a lot to talk about next week.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Remember to subscribe, like, review, and share. I'm Josh Price, and we will talk to you again on the next episode.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news, because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be, because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between, and all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com.